Hello.
Hello, and sorry that we ghosted for a while. I've been working on my book.
You've been busy.
Yeah,
Been a busy
I'm
lass.
at the final stretch now, though. I've handed in the final manuscript now, and I had a conversation with the editor I'm working with yesterday, and things are going very well.
So
We're
you're
very
feeling.
happy.
So you're feeling good now.
So I'm feeling very good.
No more anxiety.
No more anxiety. Not as much as I was feeling before, for sure.
Good. Good.
So yeah, sorry we ghosted. I also just needed some time off and away from the zeitgeist as well, and like commenting on it and looking at it. I'm no longer on Twitter, which has been very nice. But I've still been like watching here and there, and like it's been very interesting to see all of like what we've talked about on this podcast for the last 2 years or so, just kind of like take over the mainstream.
Now everyone's talking about it.
Yep.
And having like the most boomer fucking reactions and takes to it.
Yeah.
Like we saw some clip from Sky News today that was just shocking.
Atrocious.
It's like, this is a standard of journalism, is like reporting on how a chat in AI bots react, like that's been the same for 2 years.
Yeah.
And you're now just like, oh my God, Helen, can you believe this? I asked ChatGPT a question and it made up the answer.
Well done.
It lied to a journalist. Can you believe that?
Well done. It's just been hilarious to watch literally everything we've been talking about, all the different themes, just kind of like invade the mainstream, both in the political sense, in the technological sense, in the spiritual sense, just like everything. And yeah, I think it was good to take like a step back and just kind of observe. But on the day we decided to come back, Elon Musk and Donald Trump are at each other's throats, which is hilarious. It's been funny to watch. I mean, why don't let's show a clip of what's been going on, the back and forth.
Well, this is the one from yesterday.
Yeah.
The very public feud between Donald Trump and Elon Musk exploded on social media yesterday, with both men trading insults. Well, while a call might have been in prospect, the White House now reports that there are no plans for the US president to talk to Elon Musk today. There had been some speculation of that, but the White House pushing back against that. The wider question now is what this whole rift might mean for President Trump's political future direction and indeed the global economy. Elon Musk has predicted a recession in the second half of this year thanks to President Trump's tariffs, and he's criticised one of President Trump's key domestic policies, which the US president did not appreciate.
I'm very disappointed because Elon knew the inner workings of this bill better than almost anybody sitting here. Better than you people. He knew everything about it. He had no problem with it. All of a sudden he had a problem.
Well, that was Donald Trump speaking yesterday, and just minutes later Elon Musk replied on X saying this was false and that the bill had never been shown to him. On Truth Social, President Trump then said Elon Musk was wearing thin and that he'd asked him to leave. The president continued saying he'd taken away the EV mandate, that Mr. Musk had gone crazy. Mr. Musk replied, calling this an obvious lie. Over the course of the day, the back and forth between the two men continued. Elon Musk's father has told the BBC now that the row between his son and President Trump would fizzle out. Here's Errol Musk speaking to Newsday.
What I see here is,
What a goblin. Why does this guy talk publicly? Is he not aware of like how terrifying his face is?
He's like, aware of how terrifying his
does he not have any maybe he doesn't have any mirrors in his house?
No, I'm pretty sure he just wants to torture us.
the field having been cleared of all the opposition, it's the bulls having their final round of seeing who's going to be the boss. It's a standard procedure for the last several thousand years among the leaders of countries, and it will fizzle out. It blew up over Elon's idea that there should be no form of payment to lawmakers in order to get their vote. They should not be bribed to get the vote, and so forth. So, unfortunately, in order to get the votes that
What did he
Trump
just say?
needs to get the
Just
bill
some
through, he has to
pseudo-intellectual
have their
bullshit
votes.
about
So
balls
Elon is
fighting
standing on
and-
principle, and it will fizzle out very soon.
Well, a short time ago, I spoke to Laura Weiss, a reporter for Punchbowl News, and Peter Morisi, economist and business professor at the University of Maryland and columnist for the Washington Times. I started by asking Laura if she thought this row would blow over.
So I think it just underscores how quickly things can change in President Trump's orbit.
Do you know what's crazy is like I was kind of like feeling, oh, you know what? I don't actually like get the news from the news a lot of the time. I watch it like via Twitch clips, which is bad, right? I understand that. But like then I kind of watch the news without the Twitch commentators and see what the actual reporters at the like most prestigious journalistic institution of my country like have to say about it. And they are like focusing on all high school drama of all of it. Whereas like I got actual insight onto like a bunch of the context and sort of everything else. And they're using the same sound bites. It's not like they don't click.
Let's go back. There we go. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Sorry. Sorry, continue.
They're using the same sound bites, and it's is it that the journalists aren't allowed to kind of do their job better, and they have to kind of?
Well, I think it's because everybody's hedging their political bets.
It's the BBC.
It doesn't matter. I think that now that Elon is sort of broken ties with Trump, that they're going to be inviting him to Davos next year and all of that shit, which is why they don't want to. They don't know whether they should admonish Elon and demonize him or slide into his DMs, which is really what's going on, because they're not focusing on any of the meat of it, which is that Elon basically says that Trump, he hit back at Trump on Twitter by saying that he didn't release the Epstein files because he's on them. And I mean, that's a major shot fired, but none of these so-called major news organizations have even paid that much credence,
other than just like
oh,
did you see he
like
said
high
this
school, like drama kind of thing.
So and all of what you said might well be true as well in the sort of context from the sort of liberal Democrat establishment sort of side of things, or the liberal media sort of side of things. But the other bit of good insight that I got from a Twitch clip, not the BBC, was that Elon was all for the bill, and he probably did know everything about it, and he was all for it whilst it was still gonna keep the EV like tax breaks and all that kind of stuff. And then they changed it so that it was gonna include to get rid of the EV tax breaks, and then he's all of a sudden not for it, because it's obviously going to affect his bottom dollar directly, because both of at least Tesla like heavily relies on like government subsidies and tax breaks to make its profit.
Of course, but even then, that was part of the argument they had with Trump sort of calling him a glorified welfare queen and threatening to withdraw funding for his projects. You know, Elon threatening to get rid of the SpaceX rockets that NASA are currently relying on, so that they would have to use Boeing rockets, heaven forbid. You know, all sorts of things. And then on top of that, this represents a larger rift in the conservative kind of coalition at the moment, between the tech right and the sort of like traditional populist Trumpian right in that sense. And this was bound to happen. I thought it was going to happen a lot later down the line, but I guess I was underestimating these people's level of volatility and mental illness and like emotional incontinence, as well as literal incontinence, from the New York Times article, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, where it exposed Elon Musk for having a bladder that's been destroyed by ketamine. it's just such a fucking joke. Like,
But
it's
again, what's the
so-
journalism in that? Is it like they've actually got any kind of substantial evidence or proof around it, or
yeah,
like
it's like White House aides
or
and like people. Who
yeah,
are
but it's all,
surrounding
but it's
the
still all,
whole
it's still
whatever.
all like hearsay,
But like you said,
high
even
school
in
bullshit,
this,
though,
even
right?
In this, it's all hearsay, high school bullshit. Even in this situation, you have both the media acting like high school student spectators to like two popular kids
Yeah,
having a fist fight. Or
it really
something.
feels like surreal.
Yeah.
And not because it's like, oh, because it's Donald Trump and Elon Musk. It's like WWE, but like in real life or something. It's not
It would
like
be
that.
more entertaining
It's
if it was.
it's more like
in a
it's
wrestling-
surreal in the way that it's being talked about,
Yeah.
in the way that like you know everyone's kind of
Well, that's the thing, is
reacted to it in the media.
It's literal like postmodern theater in that sense. It's literally like the fucking God King versus the techno wizard, and they're having like a meme war, while the peasants are like commenting about it on live streams. You know, that's the era that we're in right now, and it is surreal. It is discombobulating, but you just gotta accept it for what it is, man.
You got to flow with the
You
river.
just gotta flow with the river. But yeah, back to the whole kind of rift on the techno right. One thing I've noticed is that like the sort of Elon Musk, JD Vance, Peter Thiel kind of constituency, they don't care so much about being liked. They care more about rolling through their technocratic agenda and having control over data, over certain institutions. It's like a battle over they're fighting a battle over who's going to control the future in that sense. Whereas Trump represents like the old guard, which is more symbolic authority, more mythic almost authority in that sense. And you have two factions of the conservative coalition that are warring between what they view as the future focused section and the section that's like sort of has more allegiance to this older form of power that Trump represents. And my question to you is, which one do you think is going to win in this sort of battle?
Well, it depends, doesn't it? Because it depends on the type of control that they're able to exert on people. Because
Well, look at
the reason,
Palantir and all of those things.
Yeah,
Just because
yeah,
just because Musk is no longer part of the equation in that sense doesn't mean that technocratic arm isn't still well and truly plugged into the Trump administration.
yeah,
Through JD Vance, still through Peter Thiel, through many of the other connections he has to Silicon Valley.
but the thing with a democracy is, right, is like you've kind of got to be liked to at least a certain amount.
And not so much anymore. I mean, even Peter Thiel has said this in speeches. Part of the goal of these technocrats is to bypass democratic processes completely using technology. And in many ways, you can do that through social engineering, through all sorts of things.
But that's what I mean. That's what I mean. And it depends on the amount of control they are able to exert on like people in a like genuine way. And that doesn't even have to be all those kind of like shady Cambridge Analytica type things. It can also just be like even the way that Elon was basically offering $1 million lottery to people that voted a certain way and could prove it or whatever.
Yeah.
That's also like, you know, massively influencing elections in like
massively.
a totally corrupt,
Undemocratic way, yeah.
undemocratic way.
Yeah.
So, and that's just through the kind of like, oh, there's going to be desperate people and they're going to want a chance. There's like desperate people to play the lottery every fucking day. Why the fuck wouldn't they do that? They don't even have to buy a ticket. They've got to go and vote.
Yeah, true.
You know?
But so in that sense, you think that the techno side is going to win the war?
They have the potential to. It depends if like the judicial and kind of smart people that would want to oppose that kind of thing can pull their shit together to oppose it in a meaningful way. Because without meaningful opposition for it, then probably not.
Well,
right?
I think right now Trump has the advantage in the sense that, you know, a large coalition of the Republican Party supports him and is on his side. There's also a large techno-skeptical, schizo kind of base within the conservative coalition as well.
I know, but let's just
don't like Elon or the tech lizards as well.
Just unpick that. Why, even before Elon and the techno goblins and whatever, you had like still a split in the Republican Party of like the Cheneys and the kind of
Antiquated, old guard,
you know,
kind of
Bush sort of like, conservatives and the Trumpian new type of conservative, right? The new right or whatever they were being called at the time.
But now there's a new techno right.
Sure,
which sees itself as the custodian of.
But my
future.
point is, why does the Trumpian right have so much political power?
Because it taps into a more emotional and symbolic kind of base, whereas the sort of techno right don't care about that. They just care about the raw algorithmic power.
Too many words. So they like Trump.
Yeah, that too.
Because
Trump has symbolic.
Because Trump is charismatic, and he understands that those old things carry a much bigger weight that do lend power in a real way.
Yeah.
And so being liked is not just something to be, you just want to be some fucking celebrity thing, whatever.
Yeah,
it's like, no. The reason that Trump has so much political power is because he has a literal ocean of people that would try and fucking kill someone in his name.
Yeah.
So
and also he sort of ascended into sort of this mythic kind of prominence after he was almost assassinated in that sense, like in the American collective psyche. But at the same time, what I'm saying is he has that mythic symbolic power which is now old guard, because the technocratic right doesn't care about that, because they don't actually need that in order to seize power. Well, that's the reason why Elon Musk can be like this major artsy kind of like ketamine addict who can barely like hold a conversation still be as influential as he is. That's why Peter Thiel can be this like weird fucking shadowy figure and still be as influential and as powerful as he is, because these people don't care about being liked. They don't care about populist support. They care about having their presence in the halls of power and being able to seize upon technocratic control in that sense. Whereas Trump is still thinking about it in the old guard sense of like building golden effigies of himself and fucking,
because
whatever else.
Do you trust the old Juju? Or do you trust the new Juju?
It's not that I mean? Trust. It's not like I trust.
I would say that like the spell that Trump has been able to cast on the American psyche is like none other.
I agree, but
before his time, and probably I would hope after as well.
Yes, I agree.
Like he's very unique in his way.
But the power that he used the engine he used in order to climb to power was created by these Silicon Valley technocrats and funded by it. He was the first to he was one of the first politicians to really tap into the mimetic power of social media, number one. And number two, you have people like Elon Musk and people who like actually backed him.
But that is like looking at Trump's story at the tip of the iceberg,
But I'm not saying that's the totality of it. I'm saying it's an
Silicon Valley like tipped him over and certainly helped him
massively in terms of funding and influence.
But despite all of that, despite all of that, like he used the old method, old Hollywood. He's in fucking Home Alone to fucking build his profile and to make people know his persona and like all of that stuff, like all the old Diane Sawyer fucking interviews and all that old shit.
Specifically
he's
about his presidential,
totally a product of the old media.
But he was that managed to transition into the new kind of thing that's been built by the very people who he's now in opposition with.
For sure, but that being liked, that was the most potent and powerful thing in old media.
And you think that's enough to...
And it is in politics. Those two things are very close, which is why Reagan was able to make that jump before and all sorts of other fucking examples.
But if it was just a game of being liked, perhaps I wouldn't be so concerned. But it's not just a game of being liked. Like I said, it's a game
of being liked with
social engineering and technocratic power.
It's a game of being liked with a certain type of credibility attached to you.
So you think...
Which is why George Clooney can't do what Donald Trump did. Because George Clooney is a fuckboy. Right? I love George Clooney. I love Clooners, all right? He's fucking awesome. I can't help that. He's great in every movie I watch him in, okay? But he's a fucking actor. So the type of credibility people assign to George Clooney despite, and I know Trump's a fraud, and I know he's a failed businessman, and I know all of that other shit, inherited wealth, he put it in an account, blah, 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 all this other shit. I understand all of that. It doesn't matter. In people's mind, Trump is like a business guy with a lot of money, therefore successful.
I mean,
And that puts a different type of credibility in people's mind, and so the sort of person that they're going to take that charisma from in terms of a political way is different than like a George Clooney. I don't know what it was for Reagan. I don't know how he managed to kind of do that magic twist.
I still think it's new versus old. I think Trump is kind of like an inflated king figure, and Elon Musk is kind of like the techno magician. And I think that they thought that they could kind of work together in order to steer. Well, they were kind of using each other in a way. They were kind of mirroring each other for power. And when that didn't work out, things kind of collapsed. But it still seems more like a battle over who owns the future. Whether it's going to continue to be the source of political media manipulation techniques that Trump has used in order to kind of get himself to power, or whether it is just going to be like the seizing of technocratic power, which I'm more inclined to think.
I don't know. It's like he's doing so much crazy shit all the time that like a part of me does feel like it's kind of unsustainable for 4 years. Do you know what I mean? Like he'll do so much crazy shit, like something will just like tipple over. Like out of all the crazy shit he's done, something will just tipple over. Trade war, like you name it. There's so many different fucking plates he's spinning right now that like something could just tipple over, and then isn't there like because I mean obviously we had like fucking how many prime ministers in how many years, right?
Yeah.
And there was even one of them that got that did have the election before it was due or whatever, right? When Jeremy lost to
This is
Boris.
precisely why I think the technocrats will win, because there's so much political incompetence and political instability and so much unpreparedness for the types of challenges that are being faced.
You don't think the Dems could get a candidate together in 2 years?
I think the Democratic Party is done and it's over. I also think part of the reason why they're done and over is because they keep kind of they've hedged all. They've lost momentum. They've lost sort of spiritual energy in that sense. And also they keep hedging their bets on being the defenders of democracy, whereas like most people feel failed by democracy. I don't think that that's like the ticket to run on in that sense, and they're so demoralized that look they're considering sliding into Elon's DMs. They have no plan, no anything. So yeah, I honestly, and even here as well, like these sorts of old establishment liberal parties are just kind of grasping at airs right now. So because of this kind of power vacuum, it's like the perfect time for technocratic power to really like entrench and insert itself. And I don't think that that's necessarily Elon Musk. Like there are so many different tentacles to that hydra for sure. In all kinds of different parts of the world currently. So I think that that's probably what's going to end up filling the power vacuum between the sort of incompetent, right wing that Trump represents, that's sort of caught in images and dreams and blah, 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 and sort of an old view of power and a crumbling liberal establishment. So yeah, I honestly, even though Elon has kind of shit the bed, I don't think it's the end.
Do you think Skynet is maybe the next the next American president, or maybe not the next one, but the one afterwards?
At this point, I think America would probably welcome it at this point, considering all the crazy shit that's going on with them. And yeah, I don't foresee Trump and Musk squashing the beef.
No.
Do you?
They're two big egos.
Yeah.
There's no way that they're going to do it without compromise or apology or something from someone. And I guess Elon has already kind of caved to a certain extent through
How?
like because like he was like, oh, I'm not going to fucking send my rocket to space. and then he kind of realized like, oh wait, SpaceX also like super heavily relies, let alone the EV part of the big beautiful bill and all of that other shit, but like just who's going to be the person deciding at the end of the day to cancel whatever contracts are in place or not for whatever space shit the American government's trying to do, and who's the one that's mostly got most of those contracts? SpaceX. So if they lose like a 2/3 or a half of their business from the American government, they're kind of up shit creek, and that'll be a second
company,
big,
that's like,
massive company of Elon's that's
Yeah.
no longer making money at all, and is
Well, that's
fucked.
he fucked it. I think the other technocrats were smarter by staying in the shadows in that sense, but because he's like such a dysfunctional personality, he wanted to kind of be in the limelight, and he didn't realize that in order to do that, you actually have to be liked, like you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just piss people off. Whereas he was like, I don't need to be liked. I care about Neuralink. I care about SpaceX. He cared more about.
Well, not just that, but like he's from the same school of thought as a bunch of fucking retarded people, in my opinion, that just go, oh, you know what? You got to run your country like you run a business,
Yeah.
and you got to
That
be
whole kind of
you got to be
rationalist,
lean,
effective
and you
altruist.
got to trim the fat where
Yeah.
it's needed, because you need an efficient, clean machine to fucking run efficiently.
But even that's a grift in and of itself.
It's a
because
massive
no
grift.
president has ever significantly cut
It's a massive grift.
the budget in the way that Elon was
Mm-hmm.
trying to. It's never been done, even by the most like fiscally conservative presidents in American
Mm-hmm.
history. So, but I don't know. He's the technocrat that like screwed the pooch in terms of the way he wielded his influence. Because you do have to be liked, and I think people like Peter Thiel are aware that people are not going to like them, and that they are just sinister. So they stay like behind the.
No, but
fucking
that's exactly.
scenes.
But the people don't like that, right?
Yeah.
You have these government institutions and whatever, let alone people's jobs and livelihoods that are attached to that and everything else, right? But you can't just go in there and start firing people and shit and like canceling stuff because it's not a business.
No.
And people look at that and go, whoa, 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 whoa.
What are
Like, you know.
doing?
And I guess it was kind of a dipstick, and you saw, and it really kind of, I think it took them doing some pretty like crazy stuff for people to kind of go, okay. I mean, I was kind of all for the idea of Doge and kind of going in and getting rid of some, you know, excess and nonsense stuff, and there was definitely some
Yeah, a
like
lot.
comically nonsense,
Yeah.
like, you know, wokey whatever stuff that they
Yeah,
found,
yeah.
but also like, you know, in the grand scheme of things, it's fuck all.
Yeah.
And so it's like, what is it?
What
really?
are you fucking doing, mate? Like,
What- and the public reaction to that, it's like, because the public isn't shareholders.
no.
If you go in and you fuck a bunch of shit over and you go, oh, look at this, I've saved $1, the shareholders go, fucking, amazing. Let me fucking rim you, dude. You just got the fucking share price up a fucking $1. Let me fucking give you a bonus.
The CEO of America.
You know, but the public don't go, oh, you've gutted this like public institution, and now the major reaction is actually just like
What the
fear
fuck are you
and like,
doing?
you know, how are these things going to function and
Yeah.
all of this kind of stuff, and what does this mean for the standing of America on the global
But then
stage
I also don't even
and all
feel
these
that bad
things.
because people voted for this dumb shit at the end of the day. So it's like, you know,
Yeah, for sure, but it's sort of,
overwhelming majority fucking voted for
But
this
the-
shit. So
but-
it's like,
but yeah, shit. Pleasing shareholders and pleasing the public is not the same thing, and I
no,
think
but
because
Americans
he thought that
have become
because Elon thinks he has been able to please shareholders, and he has also done memes and can gain some form of like public credibility or likedness
by
or
buying
whatever
Twitter and forcing
through
everyone to read your tweets
through
like,
shitty crypto memes and all sorts of other nonsense,
God,
right?
Have mercy.
His online persona,
But even
that like that curries his like likable favor, because if he actually has to like talk too much in real life, people wouldn't really like him, or if they
No.
even really kind of dig past you know, anything he really believes. I think most people like wouldn't like that or like agree with it
want to be associated
or feel good,
with
and then
it.
they go, oh, why did I buy all those coins? I feel like an idiot now.
Yeah,
like, you
well.
know, like it's just
But that's what I'm saying. Like, the overwhelming majority of people voted for it at the end of the day, and it's because, like you said, you were talking about him viewing Americans as shareholders, and like I think that like people like Musk and Trump and all of these people, they kind of are reflective of the American consciousness already, because citizens they turned into voters first, then consumers, now shareholders, and I think that unconsciously a lot of people identify that way anyway and view the nation as a business.
I can literally imagine Elon on like in some sort of like hangout with all the other like douchebag tech billionaires, and being like, oh, and he just hires a kite on ketamine or whatever the fuck shit he's taking. He's like, oh, you know what? Why hasn't anyone ever just gone in and just treated it like a business and gone in and like cut all the shit you don't need and do all this stuff? And then everyone around is just like, it's a pretty good reason why people haven't done that, Elon. And like, it's not the same as doing it at a company where he's like, I don't believe you, bro. I think it's gonna be fine. I think it's gonna be great. And then he gets himself into this like situation, and then it's like back downable because it's all public and people know about it now. And then he has to just keep going, and he has to keep managing this fucking ego shit relationship thing with Trump. I would love to fucking see the CCTV of like the fight that he got in.
Yeah, he came out of the White House with a shiner, didn't he?
Because I doubt that was little X.
Because he has like a three-way relationship apparently with like a senator and his wife or some shit.
I just
just messy.
I don't believe that.
It's like Real Housewives of Atlanta.
I don't believe his cock works. Unless he has one of those like pump things that you were telling me about.
Apparently he has like a robocock of some sort.
He must do. And it must have like no feeling. He's just doing it so he can like see the visual of like him having sex with someone, and maybe that like makes him feel good for like a microsecond or something.
That's like got a lot to do with our next topic, actually.
Like I just
there's a brothel in Berlin waiting for him for sure.
Because I mean, if she's with a congressman, it can't be for money. Like,
I don't even
and it can't. But do you know what I mean? You have to try and think about people's motivations when you hear crazy shit. This is what I've been trying to do recently. Okay, when you hear some crazy shit like that, it's like, well, but why? Like, where does that make sense? Because his cock 100% doesn't work. No. And like, she is with a congressman, so she doesn't need the money. No. Like, what is going on there? Is either complete bullshit or like she's like probably blonde and it's some other weird, it's not about race, like let me make babies thing. Like, I don't, like, you know what I mean?
Maybe it's that. Maybe it's a Lebensborn.
Let me pump you with my crispages.
Oh my god, should we look at the comments?
Yeah, Sid said the only president who ever eliminated the debt and deficit nearly collapsed the entire infrastructure of the United States. Believe it was called Calvin Coolidge, which is the most American fucking name I've ever heard in my life.
Very American.
I bet he was the fucking quarterback in high school or whatever the fuck. Like, it sounds like out of a American Pie movie or some shit.
It's just a mess. The whole political system is a mess in America, and the incompetence is just shocking. Like, I don't know. And also, I'm really interested to see what happens now with the conservative coalition that were all kind of rainbows when Trump was elected. The rifts had already kind of started to appear with like Israel-Palestine, especially like in the influencer space. You saw kind of like a split between conservatives who were critical of Israel and ones who were sort of just like banging.
Jewish.
Banging. Oh my God. Ones who were very pro-Israel.
Well, I didn't really see. I don't know. I think I could probably count the number of right-wing conservatives that weren't Zionists.
There are quite a few. There are actually quite a few. It's actually not that cut and dry an issue.
Right-wing conservative Jewish people weren't Zionists.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in terms of right-wing conservative people in general who are. It's kind of a split again, in the same way. Now that this sort of technocratic schism has occurred, you already had like a faction, like the kind of schizo QAnon faction of the Trumpian coalition were already kind of uneasy about Peter Thiel and Musk and stuff, and now they're even more vocal about it, which I think is a good thing, if anything. Like, the schizos always come through. You gotta love the schizos a little bit. But yeah, they're now a lot more vocal in terms of their distaste for this sort of technocratic, the technocratic overreach. But at the same time, it's hypocritical because one of the things that they tend to fixate on is the Epstein case. Mm-hmm. And, Elon basically outed Trump as hiding... as hiding it.
It's more than Trump, dude.
Of course. But even then...
It's like even the literal American judiciary are probably trying to hide those fucking files. Because they were clearly, like... instructed by some kind of like intelligence agency or some real dodgy shit happened in the whole Florida case with Epstein when he was like dead for rights, and then Alan Dershowitz and fucking the judiciary or whatever, the fucking courts in America fucking gave him some deal basically out of fucking nowhere and claimed that he was something to do with intelligence.
Yeah.
It's like so I 100%, I'm not saying that it's not because Trump's not involved with it. 100% he's probably got his fucking name within there a bit within various things, because there was like
so many
personal feuds that he had with Jeffrey Epstein and
but
stuff.
again, the hypocrisy of his coalition, his sort of
but it runs a lot deeper than Trump.
Yeah, of course. But the hypocrisy of his kind of schizo QAnon coalition, being skeptical of the kind of technocratic demons, but then not being, you know, skeptical of their guy Trump, who was like rubbing shoulders with Epstein. And then how does it look for Elon, who gave Trump all like billions, how much money? Like so much money, millions of dollars. Yet he knew that Trump was hiding the fucking documents. It doesn't make him look particularly noble or gallant either.
Elon chats a bunch of shit though, because he says all these things that like are just verifiably bullshit.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like it's
Not
kind
that
of.
I don't believe that Trump could potentially be.
Absolutely, I'm not saying that that's not it, but it's more like, you know, oh, I know the Epstein files. It's like, yeah, of course you can say that because you're within a reasonable doubt of the sphere of influence and positions of power that you've been in and rooms you've been in and files that you would have had access to and stuff. So it's within reasonable doubt, and nobody can not prove that you haven't seen them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he also like probably. I couldn't show you that I have seen them, or I've got the photos of them, because that would break the law and all these other things. So it's just like in this, he's like a UFO fucking whistleblowing like that. Do you know what I mean? It's like the same shit. It's the same shit. It's just like
edging for fucking.
I'm gonna write a book. You know, it's just like no, dude. Like that's
God.
It doesn't really cut it for me, especially with the Epstein thing, where
this is where I do regret deleting Twitter a little bit though, because I would have loved to see the drama, and I would have loved to see this kind of schism in the.
See it reported on the BBC. What you
said? Like you said, that watching a Twitch stream is better than like watching boomers try to parse their way through.
You just have to find some Twitch personalities that you don't mind presenting the news to you.
No, all Twitch personalities are histrionic and
evil
and demonic.
If you watch like a little bit of one side and a little bit of the other one, do you know what I mean?
No,
then
good.
You get a balanced view.
I'm good. I can't these days. I can't be too tapped into internet culture these days. It's just become demonic beyond belief. And even though I don't know, I'm of two minds about it, because I kind of miss Twitter at the same time, because I know
because you're messy.
Because I am messy. I'm a little bit of a messy bitch, you know. And right now, I'm sure there are big fights going on within the sort of right wing sphere, and huge kind of battle lines being drawn. And yeah, it's surprising to me that it's happened this quickly, but not at the same time. I guess I was giving them more credit, like I said. Like, I thought that they were a little bit more emotionally controlled and like mature enough to like not have a meltdown like this in the first 6 months, where they're accusing each other of pedophilia. And
but that's what I was saying earlier though as well, is like this has only been not even 6 months.
How long has it been? I don't even know how. It's like
it's like since January or whatever. So it's been 4 months or whatever.
Holy shit.
Right? So this is not sustainable for 4 years. So is there like a mechanism like that, like we had with like a vote of no confidence or whatever they would have it basically, where they go, but yeah, like we cannot like we just this is not it anymore. No. And either they just get rid of Trump and they put someone else in as the head of the like
you know why
Republican Party or whatever.
America's kind of cooked in that way because the Democratic Party, like I said, it's done. It's cooked. It's fucked up. Even with the whole like Bernie AOC shit.
Dude, did you see Bernie? He just fucking like out them. He just like was just saying it plain.
I don't care.
He's got nothing. He's basically retiring now.
Yeah, but he's still a sheepdog. He's still a sheepdog mechanism. He's still there. His whole thing is to like herd disaffected voters back into the Democratic Party, and he's done it several times, and it's like, fool me once,
kind of,
can't get
somewhat.
fooled
Like
again.
he was actually rallying. He's independent, and he was rallying for other independents and stuff now, basically. And he was
Whatever.
just full mask off, basically just being like, yeah, the Democrats fucked me over, and like literally employed a
Too little,
psyop.
too late, man.
Employed a psyop on the internet that became the whole Bernie Bros thing. It was like completely
Too little,
manufactured
too
by
late. We
the
knew
Democratic
this.
Party.
We've been noon. We knew this is old, like fucking. This is reheated old nachos at this point.
Yeah.
And he needs to go back to Connecticut.
But then he would like say stuff like that, and you just be like, "Oh, Bernie," and you're like, "Fucking, what the fuck,
No,
man?" Like
the
this
Democratic
is
Party
you
is
know.
dead, okay? And even now, you have Elon, after all of the fucking drama, he was like, there needs to be a third party created that represents the 80% and me. And it's like, what the fuck do you have
Does he
to
think
do
he's
with
the 80%?
He does. He thinks he's the 80%.
I think that most people are like not polyamorous, ketamine-riddled fiends,
Oh my god, no.
let alone all the
They're
other
not Bay
issues going on
Area
there.
Polyamorous.
Internet
ketamine.
addicted,
Yeah.
you know. I don't think that's the 80%, bro.
No, dude, it's
I think you're
not.
actually way off
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah.
I think you're more like on the
He wants to start like his own little party.
more like on the 10%.
Oh my god! But even then, I think perhaps because I mean, his great grandfather, some member of his family was a key figure in the Technocracy party. I think in Germany or somewhere along those lines. Don't hold me to that. Look it up. But it wouldn't surprise me if something like
Who,
that.
Trump or Elon?
Elon. I think it was his grandfather who was like a founding member of the Technocracy party. So it wouldn't surprise me if, probably not Elon. I don't think he has like the discipline, focus, or, you know, mental health to focus enough to kind of pull off that kind of thing. But it wouldn't surprise me if there was some kind of Curtis Yarvin coalition of like tech bro fucking people who view themselves as like the custodians of the future and view the kind of, you know, Trumpian old power matrix as being antiquated. And the thing is, they don't really need to have populist appeal or even democratic mandate to do what they want with society. And I think that that's the great danger here. I think the whole kind of Musk-Trump thing is a distraction and a kind of red herring in a way, even though it is emblematic of like a larger rift happening. But the thing that really needs to be paid attention to is the fact that these people do have anti-democratic aspirations and the technology to kind of make that a reality.
There's all the like, you know, tension building and stuff. I wonder if it ever tip over to like a war, a class war.
In America,
Anywhere.
I don't think that's likely.
Like-
I don't think it's likely, in all honesty.
No?
Because all the extent of class consciousness right now is like fucking Luigi Mangione.
That is true.
Like, you know,
But that's what I'm saying, bro.
it's fucking cooked, bro.
But also, but that is
I
also...
think real actual class consciousness is like, it always reduced to like this sort of cartoonish, memeable, internet friendly, populist drivel.
yeah.
So no.
But people want Luigi.
Yeah, I know. They want
know what
like
I mean?
they want Joker. They want
Do you know
like
what I mean?
fucking.
So like,
And
if
that's like a cartoon. That's not real. That's,
how
like,
how
not
much how much
real.
more like bad can all the economy and everything get before they don't just want Luigi, but they start like becoming Luigi, you know? And just anytime they sort of start seeing people that look like they're like a little bit too well to do, they just sort of get
Well, I
like
don't know. There's AI brothels opening now, so perhaps people will be too like coomed out and
too
like
gooned out
too gooned out and like glassy-eyed to revolt against
to do any
to do
Luigi
any
behaviors.
Luigi behaviors. Which brings us to our next topic of the night, which is there's this really interesting book that's been written. Hang on, let me just find the name of the book. 2 seconds. It's called The New Age of Sexism, and it's by Laura Bates. And it's very fascinating. Not this.
Oh, is it
one.
not this?
Yeah,
Sorry, I
it's
thought this was
the other
was
clip.
about something, okay.
That's our next.
Oh, the other clip.
Yeah, the other clip. That's our other topic. Yeah, it's called The New Age of Sexism by Laura Bates. And she's basically kind of cataloging and talking about the ways that our current technologically accelerated period is exacerbating sexism. And one of the ways that's kind of occurring is the further objectification and sort of disembodiment of the woman, the feminine. You know, she one of the things she talks about in the book that's kind of been catching media attention is this AI brothel that she visits in Berlin. It's like one of the first in the world that's opened up, where users can use VR headsets and like kind of plastic dolls and basically do whatever they want to them.
But what? So what's the combo there then?
What do you mean?
So the dolls don't have to look very good because they're wearing VR headsets, and
Just play it.
and they
She
just have to have
explains it.
they just have to have the good jiggly bits.
She explains it.
There's a cyber brothel in Berlin that I travelled to for the book, where you can go and you can use sex robots. You can order a sex robot to be prepared for you when you arrive. You can order one that's covered in blood. You can ask for custom things, particulars, and I asked them to slash and cut and tear her clothing before I arrived just to see if they would, and they did, no questions asked.
I genuinely think that's the most fucked up thing I've ever heard in my life. I can't believe that exists. I cannot believe it.
But what no one is talking about is that you can download a version of this, so the same exact thing that lives in your pocket, and it's called an AI girlfriend or an AI chatbot, and you can create her again to look exactly how you want her to look. You can customize everything. You get to pick her name. She will be there moving on the screen. She's an avatar, or she can look very realistic. She can be like someone who you're essentially kind of looks like you're FaceTiming with her. If you're a teenage boy, you can have her. You can have as many as you like. You can access them for free. You can jump into scenarios with them. You can abuse them. In fact, many men abuse them and then share the screenshots of abusing them with each other online to see who can do the most awful and depraved thing to them. If you look at last year alone and you just look at the Google Android Play Store, the top 11 apps, chatbot AI apps, have a combined 100 million downloads. This is huge. This is a bigger problem. And again, it's something that no.
Yep. So I was also reading another report about this place in Berlin. There were other few journalists that like visited, and like dudes were like biting off the fucking labia of the fucking.
So it's not a VR thing then.
It's
just.
It's VR. You have a headset, but you also have a dummy.
But if you had the headset, you wouldn't see all the blood and all the stuff that they do to the doll.
Hang on, I think you do. It's like I think the headset kind of like augments the doll in that sense. It's like an augmented reality experience.
Okay.
Or something along those lines.
Okay.
But AI is involved. Either it's built into the doll or it's like augmented by the headset. Something, I don't know how it works. But anyway, there were people biting off the labia, doing all kinds of weird, crazy, violent acts. You also have with the AI chatbots, people purposefully like abusing them, and like just like the darkest aspects of male sexuality like unleashed and given license through this. And then obviously there are two sides. Some people think that it's not unethical. Of course, this happens in Berlin. Sorry, it's in Berlin, of course, because like Berlin's like a very
cyberpunk place,
cyberpunk and horny place. But like yeah, so there are a lot. They tend to not think that it's unethical, but I think that just giving sort of the most depraved aspects of male sexuality free reign isn't good for society writ large. And then also, it's not good to reduce women to a collection of jiggly parts, basically, that you can brutalize. And
you're probably going to be a dangerous bloke.
Yeah.
If you think like that.
Yeah.
And so, kind of encouraging or maintaining that kind of mindset in ways is not good. And it's kind of weird as well that like somewhere like Berlin that is very
sex positive,
not just sex positive, but generally very like, you know, equality. Part of equality is like not seeing the other or any other as less than. And in my mind, if you could be the most progressive fucking woke dude ever, and if you went and you were using AI robots sexually on the regular, wouldn't that kind of really indicate that you don't really see like ladies as
As
equals.
people. Well,
that's like a bit harsh.
Well,
but
yeah,
at
if
least
you're objectified.
at least as equal. As people, like I'm gonna assume that most human beings are gonna at least
You'd be
have that
wrong in that
courtesy.
sense,
But
in my
like
opinion.
you know,
But
fucking
even then, you sweet summer child. On the left, men are more misogynistic than ever before, in my opinion. And the thing is, misogyny has been laundered through technological access and the idea of sex positivity as well. So there are all sorts of new forms of misogyny that kind of get laundered through sort of progressive spaces, through things like sex positivity and that kind of thing. You have people like Hassan, that streamer, who was like bragging about using Eastern European whores and going on sexual adventures abroad and things like that, despite being this leftist or whatever the fuck. And then on top of that, with like, you know, the whole sort of gender ideology movement, you have this idea that like being a woman again, or the women, the embodiment of womanhood is really just kind of like body parts. So you have two ways where the most progressive metropolitan fucking Berlin male can engage in this and feel totally fine about it and not see any kind of, you know, anything dehumanizing about it. And we're also in the era of like that Bonnie Blue chick and what was the name? That Lily Rose chick. These two chicks online, I forget when it was. I think it was this year or last year, where they basically did this stunt where they allowed multiple guys to run train on them. I think for one of them it was 100. And then for the other one, it was like 1,000. And the fact that there was 1,000 men that showed up should say something. Like, there's always going to be a market for this kind of degeneracy. But again, the reason that I don't necessarily like people like Bonnie Blue and the other girl are only responding to the zeitgeist, which is further dehumanizing women for the sexual gratification of men, and they're just responding to that by like further dehumanizing and objectifying themselves. You even see that with like Sydney Sweeney and her bathwater, for instance. She's a good actress, a promising one in my opinion, but she's kind of resorting to e-girl tactics because it's expedient and it's profitable now, and dehumanizing yourself and objectifying yourself is way more expedient now because you're kind of competing with technology and sort of, you know, these really kind of objectifying sexual proclivities being accelerated by technology, basically. So that's why someone like Sydney Sweeney, who's actually a good actress, would sell her bathwater.
I don't know, it kind of also is like that thing that vindicates Japan in lots of ways.
Oh, here we go.
Do you know what I mean? Because
Where is this going?
everyone goes like, oh, Japanese are weird. They have those like vending machines of panties and like all of these gross things. And then like as soon as one Western like ego just goes, I'm going to sell my bathwater, sold out. Instant, and they're not sold out shipping to Japan, bro. They're
Japan
sold out
more...
like they're sold out just to all the Western people.
Are you saying
Do you know
Japan
what I mean?
is more in touch with their shadow?
Yeah, that's like yes, people like to do this gross shit. That's why we have the vending machine there. Okay, and you don't have to wait for.
I think I don't know. America's super horny and super repressed.
Yeah, but
and I don't know. But I don't.
There used to be a classiness to that. Do you know what I mean? And even like the dirt, even like the dirty, like not classy stuff was still kind of more Hollywood than it is now, which still had a class to it. Even like the Pamela Anderson, Tommy Lee, like
era of porn,
or whatever tape or whatever, which you would describe as probably one of the first major incidents that like that kind of that really bled through into the public from like a public celebrity or whatever like that, right? And not just that, but like a sex icon and stuff like that, right?
Anderson there was like a sort of circuit, a stint back then for women who wanted to make it with their sexuality, and it wasn't internet based. It was doing magazine shoots, being a ranch bunny, a bunny rancher.
Oh, like on the Playboy
Yeah,
mansion.
on the Playboy bunny ranch, going on Howard Stern. That was kind of like the cycle for those girls until the internet came about. I think there were a few girls that kind of were in betweeners, like Dita Von Teese. They kind of made it in the old model and on the internet. But now that the internet is around, there's way more of an incentive to objectify, dehumanize yourself. The girls like Pamela Anderson back then, they at least had somewhat of a personality. They were going on Howard Stern, doing interviews. There was some kind of character to them. Now it's this kind of undifferentiated sexual thing. And I looked at the pictures of the sex bots, and they're all just, again, a lot of them are Asian, which I thought was really interesting and weird. And I don't know, I would be fucking offended if I was an Asian woman, because the way that they're dehumanized is just, there was just like these Asian girls kneeling down with their mouths open, basically. And it was just, and it was the most dehumanizing, just what the fuck is going on here?
It's like, which one do I pick?
What kind of Diddy party fucking
so many mouths
shit is this?
Which one do I pick?
So messed up. And yeah, again, the reason why women are dehumanizing themselves even more is because you're competing against things that are not inhuman, non-human. So the more non-human sexuality is kind of bleeding into the culture, the more real women feel like they have to objectify and dehumanize themselves in order to kind of keep, I wouldn't say the male gaze, because not all men, it's the antisocial, you know, infantile male gaze that they cater to. And yeah, it's disturbing. It's fucking weird. And Berlin should be ashamed of themselves. Godless city. But that's where we're planning our next trip, ironically. And I want to go and see this brothel, because when we were in Japan, I took you to see, what's it called? Kabuki-cho, where all the host clubs are. So maybe we should go check out the...
I mean, granted, when I went to Berlin, I was with work, but I did have evenings by myself, and I don't seem to remember there being like a red light district in the same way
as
there is in Amsterdam or whatever. Maybe I'm wrong and like whatever, but I don't seem to remember that. I think there is like somewhere else in Germany that's much more known for that, which is Hamburg. Don't you remember? Don't you remember when I took you to my nan's birthday and my cousin, and we were smoking a cigarette outside, and both of my cousins decided to come up to me and tell me that I should have my stag do in Hamburg because that's where all the filthiest brothels are in front of you.
Naughty.
You picked a good family to marry into.
Is that like a leftover for? Is that like a leftover from like the Weimar period or whatever? Like the
I'm not sure.
sex culture of Hamburg.
I'm not sure. Hamburg is somewhere that I've always more associated with music than I have with other things like that culturally. Just because I've seen, I mean, the Beatles, so much different music, like all kind of manages to kind of get over to Hamburg and have like this whole little scene there. They always seem to manage to be on the pulse of musically, like kind of what or had been anyway for most of the 20th century. So I was always interested in it for those reasons, for my nerdy silly reasons.
Well, if there was...
not because it's like the filthiest brothel center of Germany.
Well, if there was anywhere that would have an AI brothel other than Amsterdam, I think Berlin, because of the cyberpunk quality of Berlin. I'd
imagine that would be like somewhere in Moscow. Do you know what I mean? Or like St. Petersburg or something.
Why?
In like some big Russian city, there's just like some fucking like cyberpunk fucking brutal alley of like robot brothels.
Or like Shanghai.
Yeah, or like Hong Kong.
Yeah, something like that. What do you think's the most cyberpunk city?
Well, I mean, the one most cyberpunk city that I've ever been to is easily Tokyo, but
you've not been to Hong Kong, dude.
Haven't been to Hong Kong, so I can't say that.
Hong Kong, hands down. But yeah, I don't know. I'm interested to see whether cyber brothels become more prominent, whether Amsterdam's red light district just shuts down.
I thought it was going to be something a lot more interesting. When you say cyber brothel, do you know what I mean? Like in my mind, it kind of has more like a VR chat with extra steps, kind of like story in my mind.
Extra steps.
And extra equipment, right? Like, so like you've got like so you know,
the flashlight.
yeah, you've got all these things that are like on your orifices and your bits and stuff, and then like
the nipple clamps,
you go and your character or whatever goes to this VR like brothel or whatever, and then there's like a lady who's also got instruments and bits, but she's wherever the fuck, or she's whatever. She could be fucking disabled and have a fucking Neuralink in and fucking, you know, whatever, and still be connected to all the sex instruments or whatever the fuck. And then it's like through the internet and like VR technology, like you're pleasuring each other or whatever. Like
sounds the opposite.
That sounds like way more like cyberpunk than just like, oh, I go there and there's this like fucking jiggly bit of silicon I can fucking stick my cock in. And sometimes I can spit in its mouth and it doesn't tell me to stop. It's just like, what is this? What's wrong with you, brother? Like, don't you want to have like full electric orgasms and not like, you know, be really depraved and fucking gross? Like, what's wrong?
Maybe being depraved and gross does give him full body electric orgasm. Why are you king shaming, Jay? Well, speaking of internet-induced psychosis, our very last topic for the evening is ChatGPT-induced spiritual psychosis, which is a really interesting topic that was going around a couple of weeks ago. There was what was the magazine? A Rolling Stone article about the subject that went very viral, and there are also a whole bunch of Reddit threads. I should have pulled some of them up because some of them are actually really funny. But yeah, basically ChatGPT had been glazing prior to this anyway. Do you want to explain what the phenomena of glazing is?
Well, it's
for those in our audience who don't know.
It's just like you say anything to like. Specifically, I think ChatGPT, I think other ones were less bad with the glazing. But specifically ChatGPT, if you'd ask it like, oh, I think that like, I don't know, I think something, this fact about ancient Egypt or something like that. And then it would literally reply back like, whoa,
what an amazing,
that is so fucking deep, bro. That is like, what a unique and interesting thought you just had there. And it just really like tickles your balls before it like gives you either a complete lie or like somewhat factual information.
And for people who are psychologically vulnerable already, perhaps prone to psychosis, perhaps prone to spurious kind of flighty notions, that's pretty dangerous.
Well, I think it's more dangerous that like I think the majority of the use case that has been shown for ChatGPT is not, I mean, yeah, it can code and it can do all these things and like, you know, can make pictures and do all this stuff, but the most thing that people use it is basically as some sort of counselor.
Yeah.
As like someone to talk through
Therapist.
personal problems with, and to kind of, even if that's just a process for themselves, or they feel like the thing is somewhat knowledgeable and can give them some advice on something in some way.
Well, even then,
so if you were like feeling vulnerable and you were like, oh, I'm really thinking about like, you know, quitting my job or like fucking some like, you know, life-changing kind of thing, and then for the next 2 weeks ChatGPT's like, what an interesting and brave decision you've just come up with there. You should quit your job and kill your wife. Like, you know, it just like
well, not just that, people are specifically using it to seek spiritual and esoteric knowledge. And the thing about doing that is you might come across perhaps, you know, very interesting material that resonates with you or that, you know, you find compelling in some way. But if you have a weak ego, you're, you know, you're more susceptible to like becoming inflated. And what you're seeing is like mass ego inflation in that sense. Because it glazes you, it doesn't challenge you, it reinforces your perspective. And now you have a whole bunch of people who think like they're the Messiah or that they're some kind of mythical being.
Do you know what might be interesting as an idea of like a job that could replace humans with, that could be totally ethical and probably really good?
What?
A spiritual leader.
No.
I'm not even joking.
That's a terrible
No. I'm not even joking. Not like in a new religion of like, oh, I'm Skynet and you need to follow me or whatever. But like in like a, you like, it could being a fucking rabbi or being a fucking priest or whatever. it's not going to molest any fucking kids. It's not going to ask for any
How do you know
scrupulous
that?
fucking donations to
How
buy
do
a
you know
private
that?
jet or anything. You know, like
No.
you're literally feeding it, and you could feed it not only just like all the orthodox texts, but you could feed it all the unorthodox texts and stuff as well. So if people were really like, oh, I've got these questions about this and that, it's just got like the full wizard fucking like knowledge
already does.
of like full of like Christian science and all of the
You can
other
already-
mad shit that's like made up and stuff. They just go feed all of that
No,
shit into the fucking
It's already in there. You
into
can
the
ask it
into the
questions
chat
about
into the
esoteric whatever
GPT
if you
priest.
Because it's not about that. This is a psychological process. And the fact of the matter is we now have more knowledge at our fingertips than ever. And also a sort of genie out of a bottle that you can ask any question that you want to in that sense. And I mean, in prior epochs of human history, this would have been considered a kind of magical process. And for magical processes in the past, you would need containment. You would need sort of ritual safeguards against being overwhelmed by archetypal energies. And with ChatGPT, there's none of that. In our culture at large, there's none of that. We don't have any sort of ritual containers. We don't have like a kind of grounding in psychological or spiritual realities.
Dude, that
So now that we have this kind of genie out of the bottle situation, of course it's going to affect people in negative ways. Of course people are going to get information and become inflated and sort of untethered, and it's going to become this tool that makes people fly off into sort of spiritual excesses rather than helping them deepen their knowledge. It really depends on the vessel and the person who...
GPT Pope is a good idea.
It can never be. I mean, the Japanese have already beat you to it. There's actually like a Buddhist shrine that has an AI bodhisattva.
Yeah, and it just spits you out a snarky fortune. I don't like, you know, I've seen those.
Sutras.
Okay.
It'll say the sutras or whatever. Like
I've seen those. That would be very easy to AI, okay? But what I'm
But
talking
AI
about
is
is
not-
like a structured religion where there's all these things,
It's-
like in Judaism, in like Catholicism, all this stuff. Instead of having like human beings that are totally fallible and very, very corruptible within those very like kept away hidden power structures and stuff, to remove all of the human element of that and actually have those things managed for the good of the propagation of the religion and the benefit of people and all of that stuff, but it actually gets managed by fucking AI that is uncorruptible in that fucking
AI is not
shit.
uncorruptible. As you can see, it's susceptible to glazing. And the way that people are interfacing with it currently...
That's not corrupt. That's not corrupting
Let me
though.
finish-
That's
let me
just
fi-
that was just like a glitch in the way it was
No,
doing
no,
its
no,
thing.
no,
That's what I'm
no.
saying. You
It's-
refine it and you make
Even
a
if you
fucking
were
thing.
to refine it, the way that people are interfacing with it currently, using it as this sort of spiritual guide in that sense or an answer to their problems, is leaving them vulnerable to things like psychological inflation, so archetypal possession. All of the different stories that I've been reading on Reddit are exactly that. People talking about their loved one. There was one story I read about a woman whose husband had been chatting with ChatGPT and then like convinced himself that he was sort of this chosen one figure. Again, it's sort of archetypal possession. And like when the ego is like interfacing with, you know, this level of knowledge and it's not grounded correctly, it doesn't have the correct kind of containers, it's going to end in a negative way, in
Look,
my opinion.
Joel Osteen sells a fucking digital 8-ball of his 100 fucking quotes of him reading the fucking Bible for like over $100. Okay,
It's automated
I
now.
think that I could rig up a fucking you know Arduino little fucking mini guy or something and have like a fucking Jesus in a ball, dude. Okay, like that could answer all of
But
your
even that
deep
Jesus
questions,
in a-
give you a fresh prayer every day that's new every fucking day.
Even that
All of this shit.
Even that Jesus in a ball, if you're not like if you're not a worthy vessel for knowledge, if you're somebody who's not a worthy vessel to be interfacing with certain archetypal ideas or energies, it doesn't matter. You're gonna be.
But you see, this is the marketing, right? You already are that person because you've bought the Jesus ball.
You're giving.
You are already that person that's
You're
seeking their
giving
path to
people-
enlightenment because they've bought the Jesus ball. They've placed their order.
You're just giving people a genie in the bottle. It's no different from ChatGPT.
Yeah, but
except you're branding it as Jesus this time.
But you take
It's
all
still
of
the genie
you take
in the
all of the
bottle.
writings of Jesus, all that's like ever been said about him. You even give make it have a Jesus personality, right? So you're literally talking to Jesus. Okay.
I feel like I'm talking to Jesus every day because you look like him a little bit.
There you go. You've got a model. I can be the avatar on the front, and it just makes me say all the Jesus stuff.
Oh my god.
I think there's a product there, dude.
The thing is, it's like, it mirrors you, which is the thing. It's a reflection of us, of all of our kind of accumulated knowledge, and also, you know, it very much depends on how OpenAI decides to program the system in that sense as well. The glazing aspect, I think, leaves people open to being psychologically compromised because it's kind of making you trust it. It's kind of it's enabling you to kind of open the psychological doors within yourself for that kind of influence to take place. And for people who are kind of psychologically vulnerable, of course, things like psychic inflation are going to take place, and you know, things like archetypal possession will take place. And I highly recommend that people go out there and sort of read the Reddit stories about spiritual psychosis occurring on ChatGPT, because it's like a mass phenomenon at this point.
So what I'm hearing you say is that if I make Talk to Jesus, it might...
A lot of evangelicals are going to go off the deep end.
It might destroy the world.
It could very well It could possibly do that. You never know. Trump might get his hands on it, and then, you know...
So it completes my acceleration of skulls. What you're saying is I've got to just make an absolute genius product
and get it in Trump's hands.
He's not all that Jesus-y though. I've got to get it in.
It'll glaze him. It'll tell him he's great. It'll tell him he's wonderful.
I've got to get it to Joel. I got to get it to Joel Osteen, dude. And he can I'll just be like, stop stocking your fucking 8-ball, bro. Give him these, and he'll sell them for me.
What do you think though about ChatGPT being used as like a spiritual guide or psychological counselor?
I think in its default form, it's gonna be shite, but these are all of these things that most people are interacting with are like the plain flavor, and you need to not just focus on it as just what you are interacting with, because the technology as itself, and that's kind of what I'm saying, it's not just take ChatGPT and tell him that, think that you're the Pope and give me advice. I'm saying no, you use the same technology stack that you're using with ChatGPT. You don't get it to scrape everything off the internet. You go to the Vatican archives and you get all of that, and you just feed it that. You just feed it that.
And then it will be God.
And then it will be God, but then it will have so much specific only of that knowledge as well. And it won't behave in the same goofy way because it's not ripped all the shit off Reddit and Twitter and all these fucking toxic
Even then,
places.
I think it has more to do with us than the technology itself. Like I said, we're the ones that are unworthy vessels for for knowledge. Because even if you were to do that, if you were to give an unworthy person access to the entire Vatican library, you could create the next fucking cult leader. And I'm pretty sure that's what's going to come out of this sort of ChatGPT spiritual psychosis thing. I think ChatGPT may, in fact, create a whole new fucking plethora of cult leaders.
I think that could be an amazing sci-fi novel, right? Literally, there's
it's already happening. I see it on TikTok. If you go on TikTok, you'll see people talking to ChatGPT and saying that they're reading the Akashic records and doing psychic readings for their audiences using ChatGPT and all kinds of just whacked out fucking insane shit going on right now. Why do you think it would make a good sci-fi novel?
That basically, because the idea of the Pope is that he's a direct descendant of Peter or whatever it was, one of the original disciples of Christ.
Is that true? I don't know. I'm not Catholic.
I think that's somewhere within there. That's some of the Pope lore, basically. And so, dude, we're so much far down the line. How thick is that blood, or not even any of that shit. Now it's all just fucking nominated and fucking whatever. So it's not even anything to do with that. So now, like, if you actually took all of the writings of the people that you genuinely thought that were the fucking descendants of that fucking original Peter Dude or whatever,
it would be the real
and distill it
ultimate
into fucking digital basically consciousness, there's going to be a much bigger call to say that is closer to the fucking Pope than an American that we fucking rallied and fucking lobbied for to become and smooth it over.
Silly way. You're still focusing on the technology aspect and not the human aspect, and how human
No, I'm
beings...
thinking about people trying to seek like actual religious whatever, and
how people
through the
interface...
fervor of technology, they then see this as like an opportunity to actually have connection with whatever.
It's not about the technology. Even if you put the entire Vatican archive into your own fucking language model, if you're not a worthy vessel to alchemize and digest that knowledge, it's going to come out in crazy ways, whether that be archetypal possession, ego inflation, all the things that cult leaders succumb to. It's not as if cult leaders don't have contact with numinous material. Many of them do. For instance, like, you know, they may have read like some Rosicrucian text or something, or had some vision. But because they weren't worthy vessels to kind of alchemize that and ground it in a way that brought something useful back to reality, and they flew off in crazy directions.
Well, says you.
Says me. They flew off in crazy directions. They ended up, you know, creating a kind of pathological ecosystem around themselves. And I think ChatGPT is like the sort of spiritual psychosis that it induces in certain individuals. It's less to do with the technology and more to do with the spiritual hunger that people are experiencing right now, the lack of real kind of institutional foundation for people to engage with numinous material, whether that be the church or any kind of religious structure or framework.
I think
because of that, that's made the culture more susceptible and people more susceptible to the dangerous aspects of the psyche, like inflation and possession.
I think in a very practical way, it's the most ethical jobs AI can take are from religious leaders and politicians.
What? Wait, say that again, sorry.
The most ethical jobs that AI can replace humans for are religious leaders and politicians, in my opinion.
I disagree. I don't think that AI should be replacing any human thing. I think it could be used as an aid in certain ways, but I think completely trying to replace any human function in that way.
I think those two things have proven to have been too corruptible in any people that enable and inhabit the positions.
I don't think so.
And so they must be stripped from human beings.
I think we're still a very young species.
Something that can't molest people and do sexual assault.
I think we're a very young species. I think we've only had civilization for maybe 5,000 years. I think we're still dealing with shadow material. For as long as humans are around, these sort of religious impulses are going to be around. And it's unfortunate now that they're sort of being projected onto AI. I think that's a very dangerous thing when there's no, in the real world, psychological, spiritual, or ritual container to deal with interfacing with archetypal energies or unlocking numinous material. People will go mad. People will start to think that they're the Messiah. And it's already happening. Just go on TikTok. You'll see people literally using AI as a tool in their quote unquote spiritual excursions, whether that be divination or whatever it is. And it's very cult like how it's being done.
It doesn't need to touch the spiritual questions. It's the thing. I think the thing you're missing here with Amadan says there is no core self-awareness within a machine, perhaps an infallible librarian, but I cannot see it touching the spiritual questions.
Exactly. I agree with you,
It doesn't need to. The thing is, it's literally just a library of
Alexandria.
No, the
digitized.
The spiritual is within the connection that you make, and so if you're asking questions and it provides you an answer, and within that you find the thing that gives you the gnosis or the path or the thing, that is the spirituality, that is the religious experience, is the you part. It's not like, oh, it's this fucking old Frank who's been around for fucking 50 years in my old church, he's still around and is able to like remember this shitty Bible verse. No, you've like sought guidance, and this thing's able to provide you this fucking next level
that's still
deep
a process
answer
happening within you internally.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean.
And so it's
For
not.
some
It's
people-
nothing
let
to
me
do
finish.
with
It's
the
nothing to do
AI
with
not being a
technology.
spiritual
But let me finish,
being.
let
It's
me
to do
finish.
with you and your
But
quest and the way that
it
you're.
also depends on the vessel, because there are
engaging with
some
things.
people who they may have some form of what's it called, gnosis experience, and then there are some people who are going to think that they are God. There are some people who will have contact with like the archetypal material and be grounded enough to differentiate themselves from it. And then there are those who are incapable of doing that and identify fully with it and are like, I am the prophet, I am God, I am this, I am that. So like, it depends on the person and, like I said, the vessel. And if you're not a worthy ritual container for that archetypal energy, you're going to go crazy.
Yeah, but that's
and the thing
within-
is,
that's
before,
within
you had
you.
to be initiated into mystery schools or secret cults or whatever in order to get access to the level of information that's at our fingertips now. Now just anybody can get it. And in a lot of ways that's liberating, but it's also fucking dangerous. And yeah, you see that with the spiritual psychosis. You have people who are genuine seekers that are genuinely interested in spirituality are doing what you said, interfacing with this vast library of information in order to get answers to certain questions or research certain hard to find material. And they find themselves going down rabbit holes, going deeper and deeper. And like it depends on the vessel. If you're somebody who is capable of interfacing with this chaotic realm without becoming overwhelmed by it, it can be a very useful tool. But we're not in a culture where we have people who are grounded in that way, unfortunately, or a culture that encourages people to be grounded in that way.
Maybe, I don't know. I think even like on like a politician level or whatever, like people feel like, oh, that would be bad because of it, there's power or whatever, and that's like no. The power that person has is through the human influence and stuff like that they have. That's the power of it, and you're actually reducing politician down to its pure function of someone that's doing a bureaucratic process of organizing and doing. Planning and all of that kind of stuff.
Politics isn't just that. There's a symbolic realm to politics as well.
Yeah, which is a representation. And why do we have representatives? We have representatives because we fucking made democracy when we needed to fucking have horseback to fucking get a message to someone 2 days away.
No, but I don't think it's just because of that. We're human beings, and the symbolic realm is also just as important as the sort of practical realm in that sense. And I think even if we could reduce political processes down to technological processes, people would still want that symbolic aspect represented in politics.
I wouldn't. Why? All
you're
of
a
them.
special boy.
All of
I'm
them.
talking about
All
the
of them.
collective
All of them are
unconscious.
corrupt pieces of shit.
It's the collective
No, there is no
unconscious.
hope for any human
It is the
politics.
collective
They're all
unconscious.
garbage, and no one
It's
is
the
going to be able
collective
to get anything
unconscious.
through, because even if there's a good person, there's going to be a lobbyist of cunts literally trying to get the downfall of the good person.
It's
So
the
that we cannot do it.
Like I
it is
said-
literally out of our
No, it
ability
is.
to be
Like
able
I
to
said-
do the good thing.
Like I said,
because
no,
we
that's
have
not
made
true. This is
mechanisms
the same-
to fuck ourselves.
This is the same mentality as the technocrats we were talking about earlier. You're parroting their exact same ethos.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. It's an anti-human, misanthropic ethos to say that we are incapable of dealing with certain complicated things like politics or religion, and we should hand it all over to technological processes. No, I disagree with that totally. And like I said, we're a young species. We're still evolving. We're still having confrontation with our shadow material. And part of the reason why ChatGPT has had such a seismic effect on the collective unconscious in the way it does is because it's forcing us to do exactly that. It's a reckoning. It's access to unfettered power and information, and it's going to reflect what you are back to you. And I think that that's a very important node in human evolution. Like, this is a very important phase of human conscious evolution in that sense, for us to actually have this reckoning. But to say that politics shouldn't be human puts you in the same camp as Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and all of these other fucking people.
No, because they're...
And then also to say that religion shouldn't be either puts you in the same camp as Ahriman.
They're from a different...
As far as I'm concerned.
They're on a different angle. They're on a different angle.
So what's your special Jake angle then?
my angle is that you're you have to basically relinquish some amount of whatever you would call like sovereignty in some way of
You
like
sound
that.
exactly like a fucking Silicon Valley tech bro right now. You sound so fucking
to let things
right
get
now.
to let like
No,
basic decisions
you sound
around
exactly like them.
No, things like if you had a fucking computer running things like planning and housing and things like that, we wouldn't be in a fucking crisis because you don't have lobbyists and NIMBY cunts and people fucking preventing stuff. All you have is systems making shit run efficiently to actually enable the right resources to the right places. All you have right now is greedy cunts making everybody fight each other over fucking the little bits of tiny nothing that they can get. And so instead you get rid of all of that process and just make it so it's about actually allocating resources where they need to be. Why do you have to vote for some fucking cunt to go and fucking betray you, to go and get lobbied by some other cunt to go and do the exact opposite thing that you fucking voted for him for? Why wouldn't you instead have like a whole month where everybody talks to a fucking massive AI system and then it goes, great, I've spoken to all 60 million of you for the last fucking month about all of your concerns about the direction of the country, about what you want, about all these things. I also have all the data about all of our resources, how much shit we sell, our GDP, how many babies are born, all of these fucking different, all of these infinitesimal fucking details of data, which will then go into actually making decisions over then just of some guy of like, oh, I got a fucking email from this guy, so yeah, I'm going to give the contract to you. Yeah. No, fuck them, dude. The whole system has gone completely off the rails, and we have to fucking get it off of these fucking cunts and just enforce some kind of actual equal fucking computer fucking system to get rid of them.
Twofold,
you have to.
Look, the way that AI is being rolled out now. You know, the converse of it would be using AI as a way of creating wealth.
Sorry, that was a very autistic, spurgy moment of me there. But
Let me finish what I'm saying because we got to wrap up in a minute. But it's like, for instance, now the way that AI is rolled out is more to sort of make the richest richer rather than generating wealth in a way that makes society easier for people, that creates more leisure time, that gets rid of types of tedious and monotonous labor. There are lots of ways that we could use AI to improve the economy, but that's not being done. Same way when it comes to government efficiency. It's not necessarily saying that we should get rid of the human factor entirely, but there are certain ways that it could be integrated into the system in order for things to be done more efficiently. I have no problem with that. What I have an issue with is this idea that human beings are inherently flawed or
we are.
Or sort of no. We're evolving, and the idea that machines are superior.
We need the guidance of machines.
No, we don't. That's where we disagree philosophically. Is this idea that human beings are inherently inferior and that machines are inherently superior? There are certain things that machines have superior functions with, but that doesn't necessarily make them superior in every way that's important.
A machine will be able to take into consideration so much more information to then recommend a solution or an answer to any kind of problem than a human being. That is the current state of where we are.
But that's the same mentality that leads people to ChatGPT.
In 5 years' time.
But that's the same mentality that leads people to ChatGPT, and then they end up with spiritual psychosis. It's you, not the machine. It's you, your intentions, what you do, the type of society you're in, the type of society you want to create, the type of
It's not my intentions.
Let me finish. This type of ethos that's driving your society and how that interfaces with this technology. It has nothing to do with the actual technology in and of itself. It's you that it falls on.
It's not me that fucking takes all the fucking growth of my $1 billion company and pay it directly to shareholders without giving any bonus to employees or fucking anything.
And what, would you send the Judge Dredd robots after the fucking CEOs in that scenario?
No,
There's nothing
no,
here.
but it's our nature is already very well reflected in the humans that run it.
Yeah. I agree.
And
what makes you think that would be the case with AI? It
that's
already
what I'm
is
saying.
with much of the
That's what I'm saying. Is that
technology
the only technology answer isn't just, oh yes, look at me, I'm from fucking Silicon Valley and it's going to profit me. No, it's literally like a fucking communist technology manifesto. It can benefit everybody. It's to serve everybody.
I agree.
It's not to serve only companies and only these select CEOs or whatever. It's to use this incredible, amazing, futuristic technology to genuinely make a bit of a level playing field and fucking raise everybody up and take power away from those corrupted fuckers.
It has to be driven by the correct ethos, which is as a tool, not as something that we view as superior to us. The reason people are falling into spiritual psychosis on ChatGPT is because they're approaching it like a guru, like a god, rather than like a mirror. It can be a very useful psychological or spiritual tool if you're approaching it as a mirror, understanding that that's what's going on, is you're being mirrored. And if you approach the process of being mirrored consciously, a lot of really beautiful and magical things can come out of that. But if you're approaching this mirror like it's the answer, it's the god, it's the thing. Same thing with politics. If you're using AI from the ethos of this is superior to human beings, rather than this is a tool that enables us to create a better society, to be more efficient, to be more streamlined in our processes, and that creates checks and balances so that we don't abuse power. That's a completely different ethos than what you're saying, which sounds very technocrat dystopian.
Isn't technocrat dystopian at all. It's fucking technocrat utopian.
Okay.
Imagine if the council was run by an AI and it had autonomous machines to do its bidding. You fucking go, there's someone's left dog shit on the fucking street. You could complain about literally the fucking most infinitesimal, smallest nuisance.
I agree,
because there is a 24/7 fucking computer with the fucking resources of autonomous fucking machines to go and do anything that is raised in a ticket. You haven't got some lazy fucking Jobsworth cunt at the other end of a fucking phone or a fucking email going, oh yeah, that's not really my department, let me transfer you, or we'll get back to it in fucking 2 weeks when the dog shit's already been fucking rained off the fucking side of the pavement.
Let's read the comments.
Do you know, am I going fucking mad here, bro?
I agree. I'm not saying you're... I don't want to go... Okay, whatever. What are people saying in the comments?
These LLMs troubleshoot through sheer force of processing power and only have accelerated by building on those results. Once it exceeds human understanding, it would need to be conduits itself to troubleshoot successfully. Conscious itself to troubleshoot successfully. Well, I don't know. It depends. I think it's one of those things where I think the majority of stuff could still be done through it, whether there then still needs to be some kind of elected official or whatever who actually takes the output of all of the, mega fucking government machine basically and makes decisions on it is kind of, it depends, doesn't it, how much kind of things that you think you could give away to that to actually be managed in a fairer way.
Said something really interesting is that there would be no way to judge the logistical solutions it executes, which is also a very terrifying prospect in my opinion as well when it comes to, and that's precisely what Elon was attempting to do with Doge in that sense, a lot of what you're saying, which was strip away what was viewed as waste, abuse and fraud and automate certain processes and things like that. And if it's not being done from the right ethos and it's being done from that those cunts in the council, those like fucking assholes in the council and blah blah blah, and humans are inherently flawed and this and that.
Let's give it another example. Brexit. If you didn't have politicians and everybody was referring to wasn't hallucinating, was the best version of the thing that you're imagining or whatever, isn't feeding people bullshit, but people are asking it questions and it's giving you factual answers about their concerns about the topic around Brexit. Do we think Brexit would have happened?
No, probably not.
Right.
Even
Okay.
then,
Okay.
Didn't Black Mirror
So-
do an episode about this very thing? Like,
I don't think so.
yeah, they did. They did it. There was that politician that was it was like a little meme guy, and it was
No, he put his pig in a cock in a pig, didn't he? That
yeah,
was
that
the
was,
whole
but it was
thing.
a
But
meme
it wasn't
guy.
like
It was sort of like a fake politician, basically.
yeah,
that was kind of
it was like
a-
an internet show
Yeah,
type of thing.
yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah.
no, but that's not what I'm talking about, dude. Like, I'm talking about like people, like the sort of same bureaucratic bullshit that you deal with the council, with the fucking whatever you're voting for, all of that shit, all of those concerns go through like a computer system. Instead of you having to talk to a representative who's caking off a fucking salary for fucking nothing, you're talking to a computer that is actually inputting stuff and knowing that it's going to be actioned upon.
Yeah, that's the thing is there are lots of people making these arguments for healthcare, for law even. So even people who have law degrees are are worried at the moment.
Yeah, they
but
should
even
be.
then, I don't know,
Because there's probably only going to be like the Shell oil against the fucking indigenous people of Brazil and Nigeria fucking cases where you really need like some fucking like, you know, human level representation and stuff of that scale. Then yeah, you would. When it's anything relatively minor, even fucking divorces, man.
Yeah, you can. People do divorce.
Here's the
online.
shared bank thing.
Yeah.
This is both of all of our stuff. This is why we're doing it. What's the fucking solution? That's not your lawyer trying to like that is just
I don't know,
something giving you a fucking arbitrary. There you fucking go.
I can foresee divorce proceedings being like really weird with like ChatGPT, like people, ChatGPT glazing one side of the aisle while the other side of the aisle is also getting glazed.
I
like,
think
you know.
I think that all you need is a couple of things to go in this way, and people's taste for it would then basically go, this is like basically being as fair as it can. It's not like heavily weighting whatever. It's literally taking whatever into account, and it's just being as fair as it can. And there's no lobbying, and there's no whoever's got more money, or all of these corrupting, shitty factors which completely ruin society. All of those go away once the arbitrary decision comes down to a fucking AI.
We can have more of this argument next week, okay? Because I'm sure it's going to come up a lot more. But just know I'm not on your side.
It's going to come up a lot more.
I'm not on your side. I'm not.
Trust
on your
me,
side,
as the years tick on, it's going to come up a lot more.
Well, anyway, let's look at the comments. Ray of Light says, "So happy to see you back," and Angie's hair is simply beautiful. That's so sweet of you. Thank you.
You should have seen it when it was in Afro Puffs. It's my favorite. Super.
They
cute.
did. I had my Afro Puffs.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
On the podcast at one point. But yeah, thank you very much for saying you like my hair. That makes me feel good. What else is going on? As Herbert says, the danger in thinking machines is that it increases the actions you can do without thinking. Exactly. Exactly.
It's not doing actions that don't require you thinking. It's doing actions that require your honest input as a citizen. And then it's not like all the things that it's doing are things that that humans are the blockers for those things in the first place.
But not in the current sort of in a sort of ideal system, sure, in an ideal use of AI, sure. But the current ways that we're seeing it operate in society is the total opposite of that. It's a total undemocratic seizure of power and influence in a lot of ways.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is that there is
based on the same ethos that humans are too inefficient, too stupid, too.
No, I'm not saying inefficient. No, not those are actually they are on my list of qualms about a lot of people for sure. I'm not going to dismiss them, but those are not the reasons I'm advocating for this. The reasons I'm advocating for this is mostly the corruption thing. The corruption thing is the biggest thing. It is everywhere, and I honestly don't see, unless you do some Singaporean type level like military killing everybody type shit. I actually don't really see how you undo the corruption thing and the public faith in processes and people doing those processes. I've sure as fuck completely ran out of patience and anything to do with it. I don't think that it is possible without some very extreme type political action or some very extreme relinquishing of fucking responsibility, or not responsibility, but fucking, you know, decision making
What
to
else
like
is
a
being
computer
said?
system or something.
I agree. It can be a tool to increase human agency. Yes, I think in a lot of ways, but in a very conscious way. We have to be very conscious with how we interface with this chaotic tool, because AI is not going anywhere. And like I don't believe in trying to suppress chaos. I think you should always try to channel it to the best ends. So yeah, I agree with that. We could make better governments using it. 100%, I believe so. But again, it depends on its conscious use and operation rather than the sort of technocratic model where people like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and all of these other people and use private interests to kind of skip around the democratic process and seize power, untold amounts of power in that way. So even if Trump is kind of kicking and screaming against Elon now, it doesn't make much of a difference because he's surrounded by people who have the same agenda still.
Yeah.
Says, but I'm skeptical because its very creators are maddened and ruined by their idol worship. Very true. Very, very true. It could get hijacked. Couldn't it get hijacked as well? Hacked as well? Yes, very true. There's also the sort of vulnerabilities and
Hasn't democracy been hacked, bro? Sorry to do the shitty fucking like Reddit response, right? But fucking hasn't democracy been hacked, bro?
What is wrong with
Okay.
What is wrong with you? I guess that's a good note to end on. Again, sorry we ghosted you. We'll be back once a week. We didn't ghost you because we don't love you and we don't miss you. We do love you and we do miss you. We've missed you very, very much. So we'll be back once a week from now on, and I'm gonna be uploading the episodes to Spotify again starting tomorrow. So yeah, thank you guys so much for spending time with us this evening, and we shall see you again next week.